Hi, I'm Coriana Verconum. This is my presentation for Adaptations of Management. I'm doing my presentation on poliomyelitis, or also commonly known as polio. I chose this subject because I had an uncle with polio when he was younger, and so this is kind of close to home, so this is why I picked it. And here's my presentation. Sorry for the jittery camera. Alright, poliomyelitis. Polio is an extremely contagious viral disease that damages the nerves that control muscle functions. Polio is transmitted through the ingestion of material contaminated with the virus found in stool. Not washing hands after using the restroom or drinking contaminated water were the common causes of the spreading of polio. There are several different types of polio, but we'll get to that later. Polio is a historically devastating disease that was at one time rampant through the entire world, but now almost completely eliminated. Michael Underwood was the first to describe this disease as debilitating to the lower extremities in young children in England in 1789. Outbreaks. The first reported case of polio in the United States was in 1843, and shortly before that, outbreaks were reported all across Europe. Epidemics of the polio disease were reported each summer and fall, and each of these epidemics became more and more severe. And as the number of infected rose, so did the average of the age of the affected person and the severity of the disease, along with the death toll. In early to mid-1900s, paralytic polio cases averaged between 13,000 and 20,000 annually. In 1952, the disease had reached its peak in the United States, reporting in with more than 60,000 cases, and 21,000 of those were paralytic polio, and more than 3,000 deaths that year. In 1953, another 35,000 cases were reported, which led to millions of dollars to be invested in finding and marketing a vaccine. Now the types of polio, there's paralytic, non-paralytic, and abortive. In about 95% of all cases, the virus produces no symptoms at all, asymptomatic polio. In the other 4 to 8%, there are symptoms. And those symptoms may include headaches, sudden fevers, sore throat, neck and back stiffness, muscle weakness, and pain. Abortive polio is a very mild form of the disease. Most inflicted with this type may not even know that they have it, because with this type you may experience flu-like symptoms such as mild respiratory infection, fever, or sore throat. So usually it was confused with the flu. Sorry for the noise in the background. Non-paralytic polio is a form of polio associated with aseptic meningitis, which is a relatively common and far less serious disease. It often remains undiagnosed because it is similar to those of the common flu. 1 to 5% of cases show neurological symptoms such as light sensitivity and neck stiffness. And people who have abortive or non-paralytic polio usually make full recoveries. Now, paralytic polio is the most severe, and it occurs in 0.1 to 2% of cases, and as the name implies, this type of polio can cause permanent muscle damage, can result in total paralysis and even death. Unlike abortive and asymptomatic polio, The virus leaves the intestinal tract and enters into the bloodstream, attacking the nerves that control the limbs and respiratory functions, which is what makes it so dangerous. The vaccine and its effects. In 1936, 2 different researchers created what they claimed were vaccines for the virus. The first only caused allergic reactions among many of the children tested, and the second actually caused polio, which resulted in deaths in some of the cases. The first attempt at the vaccine was with crushed up monkey spines, which is pretty disgusting, and I can't imagine why they thought that would work. So it didn't, obviously. However, a breakthrough in 1948 came when a group successfully cultivated the virus in human tissue, and this ultimately allowed for the development of the vaccine. In 1954, John Enders, Thomas H. Weller, and Frederick C. Robbins were recognized for their efforts in developing the vaccine and awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. Now, they didn't actually develop the vaccine, but they did help in the research in what created it. Now, announced on April 12th of 1955, Jonas Salk, using the March of Dimes donations, had developed a vaccine to prevent polio. Sorry for the repeat. Jonas's vaccine was an injection of a dead virus and reached the market first in 1955. However, Hilary Kaprowski, a Polish researcher, claimed that she also created the first successful vaccine. It was oral, however, and a live virus ingested. She prepared it in 1950, but it was not ready after testing and research and getting deemed safe for humans. It was not ready to hit the market until 1960. The development of the 2 polio vaccines led to the first modern mass inoculations. Vaccine and its effects continued. The last case of wild polio epidemic in the United States was among the Amish in the Midwest in 1979. In 1988, the World Health Organization, or WHO, UNICEF, and the Rotary Foundations led an effort to completely eradicate the virus throughout the entire world. By 1994, the disease was completely gone from the United States. In 2002, Europe was free from the disease, and in between those dates, 36 other countries claimed to be cleared of polio. Now, polio today, it still risks. The virus can still be imported to polio-free countries, which is why it's still important to vaccinate against it. And the places most at risk are areas of poor sanitation or low vaccine coverage. Polio continues to run rampant through only 4 countries today: Nigeria, India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. Now, positive side effects of polio. The March of Dimes Foundation was created by President Franklin Roosevelt to help people with the costs of battling this virus. The organization was originally called the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis and was founded in 1938. The organization's name, March of Dimes, came from a comedian, Eddie Cantor's comment that the donation of dimes from across the country could become March of Dimes, a reference to the popular March of Dimes newsreels of that era. Now, here are some posters. This first one here is created by a postal worker in the 1950s, and this other one here is the first poster for the March of Dimes campaign, and it came out in 1946. Disability rights. I have some quotes here. In 1968, Hugh Gallagher and Bartlett, Senator Bob Bartlett of Alaska, cooked up the Architectural Barriers Act, which stated that all buildings designed, built, altered, or leased with federal funds would be required to have ramps, curb cuts, and access to all facilities. And it was their radical view that accessibility was a basic civil right for all. And that was Lorenzo Wilson Millam in 2004. And here's a picture of the senator and Hugh Gallagher. I found this interesting. Before my mom found an opportunity to go down to the grade school office and register me, 3 members of the school board came by to visit. It has been brought to our attention that you folks have a son in a wheelchair. It is our duty to inform you that he will be unable to attend school. And that was in 1973. Shortly thereafter, this came out. On April 5th, 1977, disability rights activists occupied federal offices around the United States, and they demanded implementation of Section 504 of the 1973 Rehabilitation Act that mandated no otherwise qualified handicapped individual shall be excluded from participation, or be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. And obviously at that time schools were receiving. Americans with Disabilities Act passed in 1990. The Americans with Disability Act, or ADA, is a landmark civil rights legislation that creates broad legal protections for people with disabilities. And here's George Bush and Justin Dart signing that bill in 1990. And here's the works cited page. Thank you so much for listening. I wish I could have questions or answer questions for you. Thank you, and bye-bye.